Hello and welcome to another episode of Momento Malum today. Pedigreed beef cattle form a reservoir of genetic material from which commercial producers select breeding stock, although this initial population only accounts for less than 10% of the overall population. The pedigreed cattle of the pedigreed stock for the overall population of the Hereford cattle breed play a major role in the breeding industry as of the 1980s, when this paper was written. A survey of the Manitoba ranchers indicated that over 80% of these farms purchased bulls from purebred breeders. So it's concluded that understanding the dynamics of the pedigreed population of beef cattle is an essential part of any future plans for breeding and improving different cattle breeds. Beef breeding organizations are generally composed of many independent breeders. Very little research has been conducted on whether breeders have common goals, and if these goals are related to measurable and economically important objectives. The specific goals of the different breeding programs were not stated by the breeders, but the goals could be inferred based on the selection that occurred within these populations, as well as the use of bulls from other populations and the culling decisions made by the breeders. In the 80s, Dr. Koots would obtain a file on the Canadian pedigreed Hereford cattle from the Canadian Hereford Association. This file contained the registration number, sex, pulled or horned status, tattoo and birth date of each individual, as well as the registration number of its sire and dam. Both 2 and 5 generation pedigrees were constructed for each registered calf born in 1982. The researchers were then used to construct an analysis of the population foundations of this breed in Canada, and here are the results. The registration of calves was selective, and this is true in respect to sex, where more females were registered in comparison to males. The breeders would begin registering more calves in later ages, causing the sex ratio to become closer to 50-50, but the ratio still favors females. The sex ratio for registered animals is likely a reflection of the demand for calves to be raised by commercial breeding stock operations. It is likely that only those animals which are kept for breeding stock or sold as breeding stock are registered, since there's a fee for each registration. Additional evidence of selective registration comes from the examining of breeding groups that registered less than 10 calves. A large proportion of these registered just 1 calf in 1982. This implies that many pedigreed herds were derived from 1 pair of parents. A high percentage of the parents of 1982 born calves originated from crossbreeding of herds within Canada. A high percentage of the parents utilized in the breeding process for improving Hereford herds in Canada involved outside farm populations. 94% of the males studied and 68% of the females studied came to the current breeding farm from another breeding farm, with an addition of 6% of the pedigree being derived from foreign specimens from the United States. The larger breeding programs acquired more material from outside nations, with around 60% of the males and 30% of the females making up breeding stock being derived from outside sources. During this time, there was also an increase in the amount of polled cattle versus horned cattle, much like what happened with Black Angus. The researchers conclude by saying that the gene pool of the Canadian breed population is probably small in comparison to the population as a whole, with the breeders working in unison towards a single goal, limiting genetic variation within the populations in Canada. And that about covers everything. Thank you for watching. If you want to donate to my channel, the links are below. If you want to buy my book, you can also find that link in the description box below.